Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike. And in this old video, we are talking about benders, but of the murderous kind, of a good old love triangle, and you know, if true crime has taught me anything, it is that you can have whatever you want so long as you believe hard enough, or at least that's what one man thought, anyway. I mean, straight up, this story is insane, so let's give it a go. Florida, we are inside you today. Probably should do another take of that. Specifically, we are in Deltona, a city in central Florida, just north of Orlando, Volusia County. Oh, Volusia, you again, Dios mío. You know, you'd think after this many years and covering these many true crime stories, it would stop being Florida. But I mean, that's trying to ask a tiger to like change its stripes. Or asking Florida to stop being insane. You know, I googled interesting facts about Deltona. As always, I know you guys come for the geography lessons. And it brought up 21 things you need to know about Deltona before you move there. It should have been 22. With the final point being don't. But that's the where for today's who, what, when, how, and all the rest of those questions you guys have. A city of 93,000 folks, and you know what? I'll cut you a break, Deltona. You're alright. That's the where of where does their story take place. The when was February 27th, 2018. That morning, frantic calls were being made, but none of those calls were being answered. 29-year-old Jessica Devnani was going to work at her bank in Orlando, and as she did almost every morning, she called her fiancé, 25-year-old Patrick De La Cerda. He was up in Deltona, about 30 minutes north of Orlando, and her giving him a shout was the usual every morning. They didn't live together at this point, so every morning they would call, check in, what's the crack? Except, of course, this morning, she was calling to no answer. And you know, no biggie, right? Maybe he's at work, he worked in construction with his dad, maybe he's off, busy, doing something. So she clocks into work, starts clockety banking, whatever you do, whatever bankers do. And then a couple of hours later, she tries calling him again. Nothing. Again and again. Nothing. You know, sometimes people just get a bad feeling about things. And for Jessica, this was one of those things. She really felt like something was horribly wrong, even though the only indication that there was anything wrong was an unanswered call, and there could be a bajillion reasons, innocent reasons for that. But a vibe is a vibe. And so Jessica, she called up her soon-to-be family-in-law to check on Patrick. She called Patrick's brother, Bryce. He hadn't heard from him. He then called Patrick's dad, Max, and Max said he hadn't heard from him either, not since a brief text that morning, and he'd tried to call Patrick too, but no answer. Now Patrick was living in a guest house in Deltona on his father's, Max's, property. Max was at work construction, so what Max did then was call his girlfriend. Hey, you know, would you mind go checking on the son? He's in the guest house at the back. Now where Patrick was staying, real Florida swamp. You know, it was in the woods, it was on a lake, a dirt road took you to the house, and you best believe there are gators. Turns out though, there would be bigger swamp monsters than those lurking around there. Max's girlfriend, she stayed on the phone with Max all the while she was going to the guest house at the back of this like extensive property. She stayed on the phone as she drove that dirt road, as she bypassed the gate, and as she walked to the barn. The second floor of that barn was a converted apartment where Patrick was living. And Max, he heard her over the phone as she walked towards the door of the place, saw it was ajar, saw broken glass, and saw Patrick De La Cerda lying in a pool of his own blood. She could tell immediately that he was dead.
911, where's your emergency?
My boyfriend's son has been shot and killed.
When did that happen?
I don't know.
You don't want to try CPR, correct?
No, he's dead. He's cold.
Jessica, fearing the worst, she literally arrived to the scene moments later, before the police even arrived and saw her, you know, soon-to-be husband lying there dead. That's something you won't forget. That's worse than a nightmare. Patrick,
Pat the Builder.
25 years old at the time of his death, was born and raised in Miami, Florida. He grew up in a very happy household, always had an interest in working with his hands and in construction. After his parents' divorce, Patrick went to live with his dad, staying in the very guest house he would later be killed in. He worked construction with his old man and was a well-liked, popular young fella. He had had plenty of relationships with the ladies, but you know what? Nothing was really sticking for him. Patrick wanted something a little more, love a dub rather than rub and tug, and so he got onto the dating website, clackety clackety, Plenty of Fish. And I mean, as soon as you hear dating website in a crime video, it's... oh boy, here we go. Though not really in this one. Though also sorta really. Patrick met Jessica 4 years his senior, and from Jump Street, it was on. They were a perfect match. Both young, good looking, had good jobs, and they just got on really, really well. They had both been in and out of bad relationships for years, so when they finally found the right person, soulmate was the word used, and it just makes it all the more horrific that one of them was taken away in such brutal fashion. They were only together 5 months before Patrick proposed to Jessica in December of 2018. 2 months before he was murdered, Jessica saying, yes, obviously. He gave her a temporary engagement ring, as he was actually having a custom one made for her that was still in the workshop. They were going to go get married, move in together, and leave for West Palm Beach, where Patrick and his brother Bryce were going to start their own business. Fresh start for them both. Sort of fairy tale start. Though this is more like one written by those German brothers. What were they called? Anyways, their fairy tales are always sort of grim. That late February, they were all packed up and ready to leave. But that now wasn't going to happen. So who murdered Patrick in his own home, on his own doorstep?
Someone somehow got into this gated property and killed 25-year-old Patrick De La Cerda.
We know from his family members that the last time anybody really had any contact with him was around 7:15 this morning.
About 25 minutes later, the victim's father received a text message from someone trying to get through the gate.
And says, hey, I'm outside of this address. I have a package to deliver. And then another number calls and tells the father, hey, I'm trying to get into this address. I have a package.
Volusia County Sheriff Mike Chitwood says the father then tried to call his son, but couldn't get a response. So the father sent his girlfriend over to check on him. She found him dead inside his front door, shot at least twice through the glass. Investigators are working on 2 leads.
There's probably a domestic tilt to this, but, that's where we're at right now.
And detectives say the second theory they're exploring involves an Army vet who lives next door and has dementia. The sheriff says in recent months that neighbor thought he was seeing things and fired shots at the victim's house. They're looking into both of those theories tonight, but so far no arrests have been made. Reporting live in Deltona, Lauren Seabrook, Channel 9 Eyewitness News.
Police searched the area, but found no sign of the killer. Patrick was lying half on the stairs. He was topless, probably just getting ready for the day. There was broken glass, the door was open. So Patrick had been moving to answer the door, and before he could, gunshots had blown it open, or he had answered and was trying to get out of there when he was shot 4 times with a high-powered rifle, likely an AR-15 or something along those lines.
Nice and slow. This building is secure. Are there any others that we need to clear?
Now, strangely for all of this, investigators there was clear signs that the killer had made a mistake from get-go. Patrick had been shot 4 times, but only 2 shell casings were found, and there shouldn't even have been 2. Likely the killer tried in a frenzy to clean up the scene, but in such a rush and freaking out, the dipshit, but a cold-hearted one, had missed 2 shell casings. I mean, when you're trying to clean up a murder scene, good enough just ain't good enough. I mean, if 2 were missing, he clearly had taken them with him. Why? How would he miss these other 2? I guess he's a dipshit, that's how. This would, of course, help identify the murder weapon used, but of course, first they needed a list of suspects. What would help? Well, the security cameras around the property. It was a big property, sorta secluded from the rest. So for safety, they had been installed in case of burglars or whatever. An extremely promising lead until the hard drive the footage was stored on, and it wasn't in the cloud, it was stored on a hard drive. The hard drive had been, the killer had, yoink, he'd taken a hard drive with him. He'd taken a hard drive and Patrick's laptop, which sort of just made it all the more strange that those 2 casings had been left behind. I mean, the killer had clearly researched, scoped out the area, done enough research to know that you need to take the hard drive so that the security cameras won't have any footage of you, committing murder. But then left 2 shell casings, like, right there. Killer's not the brightest, but, there's more of that to come. Other than that, though, no forensics were left behind. No, nothing. So, like, who did those who knew Patrick? Like, who could they think could have done this? He had recently gotten into a bit of an argument with a neighbor. Somebody's property was, touching. It was a little titty touch, and the neighbor had seen Patrick, thought he was, like, invading his property. So, I mean, you see somebody on your land. What's the first thing you do? Fire a load of gunshots at them. That neighbor was later arrested for that. He was sort of thought, had he just gotten really pissed off and, like, kicked Patrick's door open, he was in jail at the time of Patrick's murder. So neighbors, former girlfriends, acquaintances, all of that sort of thing. Patrick was a popular guy, but, like, racking their brains, nobody could think of somebody who would have enough of a vendetta against somebody, and that's got to be, like, scale of, like, 1 to a million vendetta to murder him. Plan out and murder. Now, that very morning, somebody had been to the house, but nobody knew exactly who, because in another, like, stab of tragedy in this already horrifying case, Patrick, he had been expecting the custom engagement ring for his fiancée Jessica. He'd been expecting it to be delivered that very morning. In fact, his dad, Max, had gotten a call from somebody, a delivery person claiming they had a package for Patrick. It was assumed that was the custom engagement ring. Max then tried to call Patrick saying, oh, there's a package coming. He got no answer. He then texted Patrick, got no reply. Sure, Max knew Patrick was, like, super psyched about this engagement ring, but of course, hollering about this, there was no packages at the property. So was it just a coincidence that the killer arrived that morning claiming to have a package for Patrick the very morning Patrick was expecting a package for his fiancée? But, Booty, what if the murder wasn't against Patrick, but for Jessica? When she spoke to the police, she immediately name-dropped. She had an ex who had been harassing her, and she named him very quick. That name was Gregory Bender. He had called Jessica that very morning, something he was not supposed to do. Her suspicions were so strong, she even called him that very day from the police station. Bet he wasn't expecting that call.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Hey.
I saw what happened on the news. I want to tell you, I feel sorry for you.
And you said enough is enough. I can't do this. I'm gonna hire a hitman. I'm gonna kill him.
No, that's not, no. I didn't say that.
Well, that's why I want to find out if it is you. Like,
No, it's not. I'm your friend. I did not do this.
Jessica had dated Gregory Bender. I know, right? Her? And him? Egg? But Jessica had broken up with Greg. He was a stalker and he was harassing her. And more importantly, harassing all the men in her life. But Greg didn't take he was a stalker and was harassing her, and more importantly, harassing all the men in her life, for an answer. He just wouldn't say no. He just wouldn't have it. As I said, he truly believed he could have anything he wanted, so long as you believe hard enough. In 2018, Greg was 50 years of age, over 20 years older than Jessica. And they dated for a good few years, and so it's like, it's not technically wrong to be dating somebody who's over 20 years younger than you, but it does give you the ick. He lived in Windermere, just outside of Orlando. He was a successful hedge fund manager. If the age gap didn't give you the ick, that will. And he was somebody who was mad to. Just enjoyed the hell out of it. Flashing the cash. So, rich man enjoyed the young, attractive woman on his arm and thought he could have it all, and threw his toys out of the stroller when he didn't. Greg and Jessica had dated for almost 8 years, after meeting online, of course, where else, beginning in 2009. Throughout it all, he was the jealous type, and Jessica would say she never feared for her own safety. She feared for the safety of the guy who struck up innocent conversation at the bar while waiting for a drink. Greg was that sort of guy. Like, if you even look at her, he's like, eyes over here, eyes over here. And he didn't just look like a fish, he was also a sharp dresser. How do you do, fellow kids? Greg and Jessica eventually got engaged. That was until one day in 2016. Greg was in hospital for a procedure, probably dick lengthening from 2 to 2.5. And lo and behold, when Jessica came in to see her fiancé for a surprise visit, another woman was already in the room. Damara Sanchez, his wife. Womp womp. Greg tried to explain that, it had just been a marriage for benefits. It was sort of like a business arrangement, and he's a businessman. He'd only married Damara. They weren't in love. There wasn't no, hanky-panky going on. He married her because he needed help paying his mortgage, and she had a kid, and his postcode or area code would help her kid get into a better school. It was a very weak excuse.
I was not in any way with Damara that was in a intimate way at all. It was just a roommate type of thing. And I needed my wife's income, and she agreed to do that in order to get her kid to go to school over here instead of in Claremont. So it was a business relationship.
But really, the relationship between Greg and Jessica was truly over. And then just a couple of months later, June 2017, she went back on the dating website, back on Plenty of Fish, and she met Patrick De La Cerda. And Jessica would say, Greg, he didn't take too kindly to that, let me tell you. He sent all sorts of threatening messages, not just to Jessica, more specifically to Patrick, demanding he break up with Jessica. Break up now, break up today.
I'm making a phone call. I'm giving instructions, and I'm going to have my plan put into action. Call me back and talk to me. So I'm going to just let it happen. I'll talk to you soon. Block me. Enough is enough. Call me now, or all hell is going to break loose.
They would both get worrisome, scary voicemails. Why not put up a sign saying he did it? Did he, though? Jessica and Patrick got a restraining order in December of 2017, and Greg, he had to hand over all of his firearms. They thought that was that, till the morning Patrick was shot. And that morning, Jessica had received a call from Greg. 2 of them, in fact, but she didn't answer either. Hence why she was so worried when she couldn't get Patrick on the phone.
He called you this morning.
Yeah, on my work phone because he's not allowed to call me, so I got scared. As when I texted Patrick, he was telling me that he's gonna hire a hitman. He had looked up his name online and he found his address and phone number, and at that point he was threatening Patrick.
Now, police were able to arrest Greg right away because he had violated the restraining order by calling Jessica that morning.
My attorney says don't talk to police. So I follow his advice.
Okay, so you don't want to talk to us about anything?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Now, his attorney, though, would later claim he didn't mean to call the girl he's been harassing and stalking. Not at all! You must be joking. He butt-dialed her. Just butt-dialed the one person he was not supposed to call that would lead to his arrest. With him arrested, though, they got a warrant to search Greg Bender's house. And in the meantime, they also tracked down the phones. They tracked down the call that Max had received that morning, claiming to be some guy with a package. That just led to a burner phone. They also tracked Greg Bender's own phone to see where was he, and it seems like it had been at home. That he hadn't been at the murder scene, or at least his phone hadn't been at the murder scene. But speaking of calls, another one came in. This time from the unexpected wife, Damara Sanchez. She had seen reports of Patrick's death in the news and said, well, I got a little bit of insight not a lot of people know. She told police that over the past few months, she had seen Greg scribbling in his little notebook, doing little sketches. One day, she decided to take a peek while he was out. It may as well have just said, I'm going to murder Patrick, and this is exactly how I'm gonna do it. It was a to-do list, maps, little notes. I mean, you'd think for a successful hedge fund manager, you'd need a couple of brain cells, to be successful at it, but it turns out that's not necessary at all. But of course, when she asked Greg, Damara's like, are you gonna kill somebody? Greg said, it's a joke, duh. I'm joking around, it's just my little fantasy. I'm not gonna do this. I'm not actually gonna commit the very detailed murder plan of the man I hate. It's just me playing around, It's a knee slapper.
I read something about getting close, driving in the car, getting over there, or sees how many cars are. It was like a plan.
What kind of plan? Like a plan to do what?
I guess to kill.
To kill who?
Patrick.
What did it say?
Something about go there, I need to remember the clothes, see how many cars are there, take the cell phone and stuff like that. And I
Okay.
confront him, and I asked him, and he said it was a fantasy.
A search of his house showed a lot of firearms, which was a black mark against him as he was supposed to have handed them all over months ago due to the restraining order. But no murder weapon, and none matching the casings found at the crime scene. Except, as the search was thorough, a single casing in a kitchen drawer. That one matched the crime scene casings. They also were desperate to find that notebook. Damara had said, the smoking gun, that it had the literal detailed murder plan. I mean, it's very unlikely he will still have it, but you never know. They couldn't find it anywhere, and it was a race against time to find it, because Greg had made bail on, breaking that restraining order, and he was now standing outside the house, demanding to be let in. And Lord knows what Greg would do if he found his murder plan before the police did.
So try. Hey, wait! What are you doing? You son of a bitch! Well, that doesn't nullify it, you know.
Why? Do you have another copy?
That was, though, till one of the officers sort of just found it. It was in the trash the entire time. Why Greg didn't burn the literal murder plan, he put it in the trash where, that could easily be found a long time later. Why he didn't burn it, I don't know. Why would that not be the first thing you think you would do if you murder somebody and this is how you did it? He must have been like the entire time. I know I'm forgetting something, but I'm sure it's fine. If it's important, I'll remember. The murder plan had a map, a to-do list, dated. He had clearly been scouting the place out. He was thorough, I'll give him that. Well, he did miss the final point, though. Get rid of the evidence.
Volusia County detectives say they found elaborate plans to murder De La Cerda in a notebook at Bender's Windermere home. They say the 50-year-old hedge fund manager found a way onto De La Cerda's gated property and shot him twice through the front door. But months ago, the couple worried this would happen. We told you De La Cerda's girlfriend was granted a protection order over life-threatening text messages from Bender, and De La Cerda put up cameras for added security. Investigators believe Bender took them down.
De La Cerda was shot and killed at his DeLand home Tuesday morning in what Volusia County Sheriff Mike Chitwood says was an act of jealousy by his girlfriend's ex.
He went out of his way, Bender, to find out where our victim lived. He went out of his way to find out how to access the property. He went out of his way to know that there were security cameras on that property.
Chitwood says Bender posed as though he was delivering a package to the home, calling the number on the front gate. That number went to De La Cerda's dad, who then texted his son to let him know. Detectives believe Bender never went through the gate but used a side road to get closer to the home and a clear shot of the 25-year-old.
Here's a guy that has never been arrested before, was so driven by jealousy and rage that for months he planned to kill our victim.
Gregory was charged with Patrick's murder less than 48 hours after it happened. Greg had gotten a burner phone and had called Max, Patrick's dad, that morning pretending to be a delivery guy. Knock, knock, let me in. He'd left his own phone at home, of course, so that, wouldn't be tracked. Then he simply just walked up to the door with an AR-15, knocked, and as soon as he saw a shadow behind the door, he opened up on him. He then stole Patrick's hard drive, his laptop, and 2 of the shell casings. But it turns out he missed 2 right behind him. Greg went on trial in May 2021, and it went about as well as you think it would. Especially when Jessica took the stand and told of the exact man Greg the Egg truly was. But in a twist at trial, Gregory's defense unveiled some new footage. This footage of Greg and Jessica. This was taken in November of 2017 and filmed by a private detective Greg had hired himself. Greg and Jessica look pretty lovey-dovey. But at this stage, she had long broken up with him and was with Patrick. What was this, you say? Well, the defense said it was Jessica cheating on Patrick and leading Greg on. However, Jessica, she told a different story, that Greg was secretly filming this to show to Patrick, to get them to break up. She had met with Greg while she was dating with Patrick, but she'd only done it to try and calm him down, as he was getting more and more stalkery and psychopathic and just, crazy bastardish.
Why are you dining with Greg and going to Greg's house in November of 2017 if you're happily moving on with Patrick?
Because the defendant was threatening and I was trying to calm him down. And he said that if I went to see him, he would not harm anyone.
Madam Clerk, if you could please read the verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Gregory Bender, as follows. Guilty of the charge of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment.
Greg was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison without parole. The small, jealous little sack of shit will never be out again. Thankfully, at least if he ever tried to escape prison, you know he will leave a little map around, patting himself on the back for how smart he is. And the custom ring finally arrived for Jessica. She still wears it to this day. He appealed in 2023. What a chancer. His appeal was denied. In this case, we see what we always see. People aren't driven to murder, they fully on drive themselves. And rather than, getting over it, stop being a crazy bastard, you frickin' loser, they're like, now she'll love me forever. It always amazes me that, at no point during all of these very detailed plannings, well, two things actually. One, did Greg never think, make sure to get rid of this. This is not something you kind of want to leave lying around. Or two, more importantly, at no point while he was writing out this did he think, you know what, I'm a crazy bastard. I should have my head examined, or at least bounced off a wall. I'm sure he's bouncing off the walls in prison. Thank you so much for watching. It really means the world to me that you are here, folks. As always, I can't thank you enough for watching the videos, for the love, for the support, for everything. So yeah, guys, thank you. As always, if you're looking for more of That Chapter, you can check out the That Chapter podcast, which has a brand new Shampoo podcast exclusive episode every Monday, all for free on all podcast platforms. You can check out the That Chapter Patreon, where for $2 a month, you get early access to all videos ad-free, and there's bonus videos and footage, interrogation full stuff that I get from police, all that, you know the drill. So yeah, next video will be up when it's up, Tuesdays, and maybe some Fridays. Let you in a little secret, Maybe, we'll see. Thanks again. Please take care of each other, cause I love you. Mike out. I didn't blink properly, so I need to do it again.